Hello, everyone. The next episode of DFS Down Under Show is back for another bumper show for the preliminary finals in the AFL. Smatho 10's back here with my fellow contributor here to the DFS Down Under Show, Big Hef. You all seem to be a little bit up and about tonight, even though you lost your West Coast Eagles last week, mate.
Yeah. There's a few certain reasons I'm keen to get involved and maybe give a couple of clips, but the Eagles weren't one of that. But I sort of wrote them off after that Hawthorn loss. That just really ruined their year, and the less we talk about Willie Rioli, the better. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Eagles fans, but we're going to get Tim Kelly next year. We'll go around again, so I look forward to that.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Also, you're going to lose Rioli for a couple of games, I reckon. So good luck with that going into the future, mate. Well, we've got a big show tonight. Best round of pure footy coming up on Friday and Saturday afternoon. Better than the grand final. These are the two games that you want to be watching, and also you want to be a part of the daily fantasy sports landscape here in Australia. So we're going to get you through some big news, big tips, and a bumper show coming up, Hef. Now, obviously, we always start our show with Smatho's 2 thumbs up, and there was pretty much an easy winner for the 2 thumbs up this week, which was Delmy31, also known as Big Days on Twitter. He went bang on Friday night on Draft Stars, claiming the $6,700 prize. And then he nearly took out Saturday's game as well, which was the Giants. Sorry, no, it was the Giants-Lions game. So if we bring up his side here, Hef, and have a look at his Friday night effort, we didn't really touch on Cam Guthrie, and he went Wooshko for 122. So that was pretty much the missing piece that we talked about on the show last week. But we tipped in a bit of Selwood, a bit of Atkins. We tipped in Nick Nat 91, your man, Bunga Hearn. It's a really good side that he's put up there for the win.
Yeah, I'll claim Bunga Hearn. I definitely wasn't tipping into Selwood. I had to look back at what I said about Selwood last week. But as I always say, Smatho, if you back the track up, sometimes you get rewarded. And track or truck? Back the truck up. Should have done that with Selwood. Cam Guthrie. 122. Tom Atkins has been really good too through these finals, but I know what you're saying with the preliminary finals usually being the best couple of games of the year. It's looking a little bit dire this year, I think. A bit of news today. We're still waiting on Toby Green tonight at the Tribunal, but I'm a little bit worried we could see a couple of blowouts. But Delmy's not going to be worried about that. First and second across the weekend. What a huge performance that was. Some familiar names in the leaderboard there. Procession, Whelan continued his good run too. Everyone just warming up for the big grand final contest coming up next week.
Oh, he'll be certainly warming up on his end-of-season trip after that massive performance over the weekend. So for you, Delmy, the big days, 2 thumbs up for you. There's the emoji. That's for you, mate. And if you come back to me, here we go. 2 thumbs up, massive results over the weekend, and hopefully we'll see you on the leaderboards come this weekend. Hef, let's rip around some bit of news around the Australian DFS scene, and obviously the PGA is back and running after the first event of the season, so we've got the second one this week, the Sanderson Farms. It was a good result for the PGA. I did tip a few blokes into a wonderful team that managed to cash. Also, a little sneaky shout out to a couple of the golf guys and Hedge Hopkins. He managed to chop out first for the PGA. So well done to you, mate. But my article up for this week for the Sanderson Farms. We move on to the obviously the NFL, and the NFL's going gangbusters here. Oh, hang on.
Can I butt in, Smatho?
What's wrong?
I've got the tip off. I heard you had a little NFL result on the weekend.
I was just going to pump my own tyres in. I was going to talk how good the NFL was. And,
I did hear a little birdie. That was you telling me, can I give myself the 2 thumbs up this week? We've talked about you coming before on the show. But run us through what happened, because you had to share the podium. so to say. Is that
So I jumped on a draft. Okay, so I jumped on a draft flex Monday night contest. It was the Browns and the Jets. We knew there was only a few players that were going to perform because the Jets are trash. End up on the last play of the game. Ty Montgomery managed to score a couple of points to get me back up to first position, and then lo and behold, I shared it with 12 other daily fantasy users. So, yeah, bit of a chop up for the first place. But if you want to be technical, it's a win.
Win is a win.
Win is a win. Oh, Terry,
okay, got two thumbs up, Smatho.
Wow, look at me. Give myself 2 thumbs up.
My phone has been going hot. I've got it this week. Give it to me this week. You're like, well, Delmy's gone first and second, Smatho, and we're going to give 13 thumbs up in the NFL, are we? But no, well done, mate. I'll got yourself a little bank for the season ahead. I know you're excited about NFL this year.
Yeah, no, it's great. We've got huge previews on the website. We go through Friday morning, the big Sunday slate, and then we do some sneaky little Sunday night, Monday night play. So it's all there on the website. Obviously, it's also free to use. So make sure you check out our plays and tips throughout the NFL season. Moving on, NBA's coming up here, Hef, and obviously you've been catching our boy Kev. He's been putting out his plays for the futures markets for the NBA, and obviously next week his third article will come out. He's going to look at the Rookie of the Year next week, so it'll be very interesting if he's going to jump on the Zion train, or is he got any other little sneakies up his sleeve. So you've been catching those there, Hef?
Sorry, I missed that.
You've been catching Kev?
Yeah, no, I have. That most improved market, that is a ripper. I know a couple of people had some very, very big results on second and third in the most improved last season. So I'm sure they'll be back for another crack. But you can get a lot of value because there's a lot going on. The most improved and the Six Man Awards, they're a bit temperamental with roles and stuff. So there's a chance to get some really good value. I loved Kev's article this week.
Yeah. No, I thought Delon Wright at $70. He put a very good case forward. So we'll keep an eye on that one throughout the season. Hopefully the traders out there might be able to green him up in no time. Let's move on to NRL, the semi-finals, and my boys, the Storms, actually, they got beaten up last week, so they have to play again this week. So there is a couple of good contests. I think there's a 10,000 on Saturday night with the Storm, so there's no actual AFL on Saturday evening after the Giants game. So make sure you catch out Corey's bumper preview. He'll put both games in the same article this week for us. And then Corey, obviously with Corey.
Broncos. No, these Broncos, they're going well, aren't they?
Oh, they're going real well. Can't get out of media.
Real stuff, Smatho.
Oh, dearie, man.
The free spins, and is that what's happened?
Yeah, going out for ice cream, and just when they go out for ice cream, and they go have a poke before. Jesus Christ! Imagine if that happened in the AFL. Imagine if Collingwood were up at Brisbane last week or something like that. And just
that happens all the time. I'd imagine in the AFL.
All the time.
It's better off putting his money there instead. But anyway.
Bumper preview for the NRL coming up. And also when finals are around, that also means that spring is in the air, and obviously our racing carnivals are starting to get into full swing here in Victoria and obviously up in Sydney as well. And obviously this week we had the Sir Rupert Stakes at Caulfield. Plenty of action there. Obviously our mare, Mystic Journey, couldn't get the job last week. Obviously beaten by Gadding at $100. So obviously, if you keep an eye for Stu's content, hopefully you can find us a couple of winners this week. If you got any sneakies,
he's on fire, Stu. A couple of $8 winners last week. Can't ask for much more than that. I've heard you're actually having a little dabble at Sport Champs, Smatho.
Oh, mate, is that
true?
Yes, I am a bit of a Sports Champs fan. You know, I'm not the best punting mug there's ever been put on this earth, but when I get on the Sports Champs, I just have to beat the blokes in the competition. And I'll tell you one sneaky thing I did last week. I actually jumped on the live game, which was the Giants and the Bulldogs a couple of weeks ago, right? Live in play. The only website you can actually just sit there on your phone and watch the game actually punt without ringing up someone to put a bet on, which is pretty awesome. And I was able to bet on disposal markets for the second quarter. I was able to book on live lines and stuff like that. Before you know it, I was actually getting pretty good until the last quarter. I decided to chuck it all in, left a little bit of cash behind, and still made a good profit. I think it was like $80 profit from a $10 buy, and I lost money. From my 10,000 sports champ, I only had 4,000 left and still was in the cash. So that's the brilliant thing about sports champs, that, you just got to beat the blokes around you. And, if you still lose a few bets, you still can get a payout.
You do get value for money on sports champs with that initial buy-in, and you get a big bank of fake money just to splash around all afternoon. And like you say,
champ cash is called, not fake money, it's champ cash.
Champ cash. Like you can be left with $1 left, and you still cash a real prize at the end. I played a fair bit over the Spring Carnival last year. I'm looking forward to having a crack again this year, because you can have a dirty day, but if you're just there with a bit of money at the end and you can splash it around, they come from everywhere, those last races, and it's really exciting. And yeah, you can find yourself in the leaderboard pretty easily if you know what you're doing. So definitely keep an eye out on sport champs, that's for sure.
Now, also one of my favourite contests they've put up in the last couple of weeks is the Richie Benno. Have you seen that?
Remind me.
Richie Benno. So for Chew, you can get in for Chew, and then on Saturdays you can get in for Chew. So what is it? It's a $2 entry. You bet on 2 races. They're literally just after each other, and the prize pool is either $222 during the week or $2,222. And it's just the 2 races. You go your hardest over 2 races. The Richie Benno. It's pretty good.
Marvellous, really super
stuff. Super stuff, yeah. Tube.
All
right. So, also, one more sneaky one. I love me rugby, and I've seen there's a bit of a Rugby World Cup starts this week. There's a $1,000 pool for a $10 entry for the whole tournament. I'm going to be all over that, hopefully. I'll get my old man over it as well. He loves his rugby from being a Kiwi, so he hopefully will sip in some value plays there to get me up on that particular leaderboard. But enough about that, mate. We've got you here for the prelims. We'll start on Friday night football. Richmond versus Geelong at the MCG. The current line that Richmond has is 18.5 points with a total of 146.5. So we're expecting a bit of a low-scoring game here. For our sides, Moneyball have a $15,000 contest, and Draft Stars have put out a $70,000 single contest as well. Obviously, in team news, we have the Cats. We don't have Tom Hawkins. He's been rubbed out for the week. Be interested to see who the Cats bring in for old Tomahawk. No Mitch Duncan. He's still out of his knee. Probably for the Tigers as well. There's no real changes on the horizon, so we're probably expecting the dual ruck combination of now Curvis and Ivan Soto. If you check out Jesse Penfold's article on the Day Fantasy Rankings website, which is always free to access with all of our free data tools for the AFL, he has mentioned today that Richmond have tightened their season-long trend down the stretch, conceding only around 1,500 points in the last 5 games. Geelong, on the other hand, have been the toughest team in the league to score against all year. So essentially, we've got a potential low scoring on the scoreboard and a low scoring fantasy output game as well. Hef, what are your initial thoughts here for Friday night?
Well, I think that line is quite small because the total, I should say, because of the forecast rain, which may or may not hit. Now, this drove me insane a couple of weeks ago with Geelong and Collingwood. We talked a lot about whether we were looking for the wet condition players or not, Smatho. Maybe it's not going to come till Saturday morning. That's something we've got to keep an eye on for sure. Go back to round 12 this year. Cats 104, Tigers 37. Do we read much into that, Smatho?
You could. Yes, you could. But I think Tigers had a few out that stage. I didn't think they had Rewald. I don't think they had any mids such as Cochin, etc. So, look, it is a few months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Cats' 8th straight win heading into the bye, when somehow they lost a wheel over the bye, because ever since they haven't quite been as good for whatever reason. And that was the Tigers. They were in the middle of 3 straight losses there. So I'm not taking too much notice of it. The scores there, interesting, both games this week actually. The heavy favourites lost last time the 2 teams met. So
yes,
that's something you don't see too often. But Yeah, I'm going to throw that previous game out the window, but I thought it was just worth mentioning.
I remember watching that ABC documentary last week. I forgot that Richmond was in the prelim last week, and they lost. So you never know; it could happen again. These are the finals. Anything could happen. But let's look at the rucks there. Anything could happen here. We've got Reece Stanley, who's finally back in the team after the last couple of weeks ago's debacle, and he's going to be up against either Ivan Soldo and Toby Nankervis, or if there is a bit of selection change, probably Toby Nankervis only. Surely, if they're playing the dual ruck strategy at Richmond, you play Reece Stanley because they're all around the same prices on both sides.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair call to make. But I'm guessing a bit, but I reckon they're going to go with Nankervis one out. It was always going to be hard to bring Nankervis and get rid of Soldo straight away, but I think that game against Brisbane with the two rucks, it gave them the option to play both of the rucks there. They don't need both rucks against Geelong, and I reckon they're going to be able to take this opportunity now to say, sorry, Soldo, we've given you the chance, but now we're going with the number one. Nankervis has proved himself last year. I reckon they're going to give him the keys, and in that case, I'm very happy to play Nankervis against Stanley. Both give up a heap of points, but I think Nankervis showed last year that he can have a really big game, Nankervis, and I just trust him a bit more than Stanley, to be honest.
Would you play the double ruck stack then on draft house?
If the rain happens to come, then I would be really interested in it. I don't think I'll play too much, but like I said, Nankervis does give up a lot of points as well, so I don't think it's that bad a play actually. If you can fit them into the side, yeah, I think it's okay. He's pretty safe, Stanley. He might not have huge upside, but he's pretty safe if you're going to play a few risky characters around, and he can get you that sort of 70 or 80 at that price.
All right, let's move on to the defence. And as we talked about on the show last week, we knew that a tag was coming to Tom Stewart, and he did suffer a tag, and obviously his fantasy output was reduced. But as Jesse mentioned in his article, Richmond give up a ton of points to opposition backs. So I'm going to jump back on Stewart again without that tag. Is there anyone else here that you're looking at?
Yeah, he's always the obvious guy with Geelong at the moment, isn't he, Stewart, when you're looking to play the backs? And he's reasonably priced. I think a lot of those guys you can play. The one I wouldn't want to play is Harry Taylor. There was a great tweet about the Taylor Harris statue. I saw that everyone said, why is everyone getting so offended to the Taylor Harris statue, but no one was offended by the Harry Taylor statue at the G on Friday night? He's in shocking, Nick, Harry Taylor. So he's one of the backs I wouldn't be looking at. But guys like Hughes and Colin Jasny and Jack Henry, like all these cheaper guys, they seem like they might get a bit of chippy across the back line, that you might be able to get a bit of value at them. And there's not too many cheap guys in this matchup, so maybe you're gonna have to go one of those cheaper Geelong guys. In terms of Richmond, you know I love Hooley, and if I'm playing a lineup expecting a big Richmond win, I want to have Hooley in that lineup because no one runs harder in that last 5 minutes than Hooley.
No.
Mark kick, Mark handball, give it back to me. He just loves that sort of stuff. So I think Hooley's definitely a good play, especially in that sort of situation. And Tichy Edwards is still a back on Draft Stars. They've nearly caught up to him there at about 12K, but they've just unleashed him into the middle, and he's just going bonkers, Tichy. So he's definitely in play again.
If there is a market on Sports Champs in the fourth quarter when you're betting live for most disposals, look at Basher Hooley for up by 5 or 6 goals and just take it to cash. Hopefully that could be the case. Yeah. I love that Edwards play too. I reckon he's going to be going pretty well, but he'd probably be pretty popular at his price point where, again, there's not much value on either side. Let's go along the mints then. And whilst Richmond is the favourites for this particular game, I probably want to be looking at Cats mids due to the fact that Richmond don't really score massive ceiling games from multiple players. I did see Dangerfield could be earmarked back up forward with Tommy Hawkins now out of the side. And then I saw Tim Kelly last week hanging around half forward around the forward pocket, killing his fantasy value last week. So there could be talk that the roles are going to be reversed, where Kelly back in the guts and Danger around up forward Could that work? Or should we just be nice and simple and just go, okay, let's just keep to Richmond Tigers mids since they are the favourites for this particular game?
Yeah, look, I think Tim Kelly requested not to have to play against the midfield he's going to be playing with next year, so that's why he would have been playing up forward. I think he'll be back in the guts tomorrow night. I like him. He's really well priced, Kelly. Dangerfield's an interesting one because he played 100% game time in the middle last week. And like, where was he for the first three quarters? He had a massive last quarter. He still only ended up with about 77. I thought he couldn't miss last week, Dangerfield. But he does seem to be carrying. There's talk that he had sore ribs and he was carrying an injury. Whether he's able to get over that now with another week, he's pretty easy to play, Dangerfield. We talked about Selwood making me look stupid last week. He's really well priced on Moneyball. DraftStars gave him a bit of a boost. He did last week what we thought he was going to do against Collingwood, and he didn't get a sniff, but obviously he hasn't quite lost it, which I'm not a big fan of Selwood, but he's got to be in play. Menegola's a guy who's got upside that doesn't really have the runs on the board quite yet because he's only been back in the team a few weeks. If you're looking for someone to go a bit left field on, maybe Menegola can pull one out of the bag. Mentioned Tommy Atkins having a good final series before. Looking for a cheaper option, he's a guy who's sort of standing out. He would love a bit of rain, but whether that hits or not seems up for grabs. And what do we do with Sparkle Narkle? He's had 5 games. He comes up cheap every week on Moneyball. He's had those 2 huge games against North and Carlton. Anytime he's been in a tough clash like Brisbane, obviously the finals, he barely gets more than about 50. DraftStars, his price is at a stage where he's definitely not a lock by any means, but Moneyball is still reasonably cheap in a game where there's not a great range of cheap options. But I'm really worried about Narkle. 350s out of 5. That's not a fluke.
No, 46 in the first final and 55 last week. So we have him projected for 69 fantasy points on the DFS cheat sheet here. So if we get that to 70, that's 15x value. So obviously he comes up as the most valuable value play on the slate. So he's going to be popular still just to get in those cheaper options.
Yeah, especially Moneyball. Like you say, well priced on Moneyball. And in theory, he has that ceiling, but you got to sort of look at those 2 games he did it in and think maybe that isn't really his ceiling in these type of games. Looking at the Tigers, he just sort of get stuck with Dusty and Prestia, and the other guys really struggle to hit value in the midfield. And obviously Edwards can play through the middle on Moneyball, and he's actually more attractively priced there. So they're the Tigers we seem to look at every week, and they're probably the ones to look at again.
Yeah, don't get funky with those particular midfields. All right, let's look at the forwards. Obviously, there's no Tomahawk so this could be a bit of a smash spot for anyone who's up forward to smash their value. The line and the total is pretty low, so we're not expecting 7-8 goal shootouts per quarter. So I'm leaning towards more of the Richmond Mosquito fleet in this particular forwards just to try and jam them in. Is there anyone in particular looking there?
Yeah, I found the forwards pretty hard to go through. One thing I noticed was Jack Henry is a forward still on Moneyball. So if you're looking to stack the Cats back line, which is a pretty good play against the Tigers by the data we've obviously got on the website there with the points against tables, you can get an extra Cats back in there if you play Henry up forwards. You can play Atkins and Narkle as forwards on DraftStars, so they're guys we've talked about that you might choose to go with them rather than playing a guy who's a permanent forward. I don't have great opinion on who I want to play at forward. It'll probably end up with a little bit of a mix for me, and I'll load up through the other positions on my favourite players, I think.
What about Radaglia at 4,900? 73 last week.
Yeah, he was pretty good last week, but you know my thoughts on just the random guy bobbing up and kicking goals against the West Coast Eagles. It seems to happen and happened again last week. I think it's a bit harder against the Tigers. He's definitely in play, Radaglia, but I'm not overly strong on him compared to anyone else.
All right, fair enough. All right, thanks for that particular preview. And we're looking at Smatho Sneaky time. And you said you love Tim Kelly, so I've brought him up for you tonight. The first market I have here is the total points over and under. And BetEasy have set a 93.5 line, $1.88. Obviously, you must be pretty keen for the over.
Yeah, I think you found one here, Smatho. Can we start referring to him as future Eagle Tim Kelly from now on, please?
West Coast Eagle recruit, elect.
Yeah, future Eagle best and fairest and Hall of Fame. We'll start calling him that, I think. But 93.5, like, you've got to look all year. Richmond they've just let these midfielders go. They don't care. As long as he's got that time in the middle, he's a gun. Tim Kelly, he's been up and down the second half of the season, but now his mates are kicked out. Maybe he can focus a bit more.
No, I reckon. Let's check on the over, and I actually had a little sneaky look earlier today, and he's actually in Group A currently at $7.25 to lead all comers in the particular match. So, sneaky couple of half units on Group A. I know Dangerfield's running pretty hot, but potential role change could see some value open up for the other guys in Group A. Saturday night twilight footy. The second prelim between Collingwood and Greater Western Sydney up at the MCG. It's a 4:35 p.m. start time, so be wary. Don't rock up after tea and reckon there's be footy on. It's not on, and we're all finished. Collingwood did have a 15-point line, but with the events of the last 24 hours, that's now blown out to 20.5. The total has remained steady at 146.5 as well, so we're expecting another low score in particular match. For the sites, we have a $12,000 single contest on Moneyball and $60,000 on Draft Stars. So obviously in team news, Jordan De Goey went over Germany to get his hammy fixed, so he's still rehabbing that, so he's not available this week. Levi Greenwood did his ACL a couple of weeks ago as well. So the potential ins include Ben Reid, Travis Varco, Matt Scharenberg, and James Aish. Aish is more likely out of those four to come in. For the Giants, Toby Green is currently still suspended, pending on appeal. But then obviously earlier today, we heard the news that appendicitis has struck Lachie Whitfield, so he had surgery earlier today. He will be out this week. I remember Roy Sloan had appendicitis, I think, last season, and it took him a couple of weeks before he got going again. So I'm not sure if that's going to help Whitfield out if they do make it next week. And obviously Stephen Coniglio is also already ruled out. So the Giants are pretty thin with their premiums. For the resources on the DFR site, they've told me that the Giants in the last 5 games are now giving up around 1,600 points per game as a team, which is quite higher than the season averages. Collingwood are around mid-table at 1,550 as a team collective. As we all know, the Giants give up a stack of points in the Ruck division, yet Collingwood give a stack of points up to opposition backs. So there is a few angles here, Hef, that we can certainly attack. Hef, obviously this is going to be a pretty hard job for the Giants to even get a look in here. What are your thoughts here from a fantasy perspective?
Yeah, that Whitfield news is shocking, isn't it? What about Green? Do you reckon he got a fair hearing?
Look, I haven't followed it too closely. It's very...
Did you see who's on the jury?
No, I didn't. Tell me who.
Former Collingwood defender Shane Wakeland was on the jury, who was down in the rooms, and Channel 7 interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. He was really looking forward to Collingwood going all the way in September. He was on there. Former Collingwood wingman Paul Williams, he was on the jury too. Obviously, former Magpie Michael Christian on the match review panel.
What are you trying to say here, Hef? What are you trying to do? It's just a clean competition, this AFL?
I'm trying to say that Toby Green was possibly up against it when he was going up. When's the appeal? I'm interested to see whether
it's Thursday appeal. Yeah, it's Thursday for the appeal.
So I'm hearing Leon Davis, James Clement, and Simon Prestigiacomo as the jury on the appeal. So I actually don't like Toby Green's chances of getting off here. So I think they're going to be without Whitfield and Toby Green. And obviously Cornelio is still out as well. That's a huge loss, Green, because all of a sudden the GWS have just gone with this Detroit Pistons bad boys style. Phil Davis be rocking those Bill Lane beer goggles pretty soon, I reckon. They're just coming out and just bashing people up. Toby Green was playing the Dennis Rodman role. So they've lost Rodman. I thought Collingwood were actually quite vulnerable here if GWS got a roll on, but now those couple of outs, I think they're going to be up against. We might see rain. Avocado, you're the weather specialist. Are we going to see rain on Saturday? No, I think he's fallen asleep, Avocado. But he says, well, there might be some rain. We saw GWS when there was snow. Like, how bad were they up there against the Hawks? So I don't think they really want the rain. Like I said before, the last time these two games played, the outsider GWS here, they won by nearly 50 points. But in the Pies' defence, they had come off a trip to WA and then they were made to go to Sydney, which is probably the first time that's ever happened in the history of the Collingwood Football Club. So there's a reason there that maybe they were a bit down. Grundy had 181 last time against the double ruck combo. We go back to last year. Pies only won by 10 points in this semi-final, the same matchup. In round 2 last year, GWS beat the Pies at the MCG. So they have come close a couple of times, GWS. It's just those outs make it so hard.
It is going to be hard. It's going to be a hard watch. Hopefully the Giants keep it nice and close for a few quarters, but you just kind of see Magpies fresh off a week should be able to overrun them either the third or fourth quarters. All right, let's get through some fantasy tips here, Hef. And we start with the rucks, and then we've got the mismatch of the century, old Mumford versus Grundy. Just a simple question. Do we pay up or do we pay down?
Oh, obviously, it's just so easy to pay up for Grundy, isn't it? But you've got to find some cheap guys to fit him in. There's not too many cheap guys here. I reckon he's easier to pay up for on Moneyball. He's a bit cheaper over there at 10.9. And in theory, you can link him with John Noble, who Moneyball haven't caught up with yet. So I prefer to play more of him on Moneyball than Draft Stars. Obviously, I want to play a fair bit of him on both. He's going to need to score 60, 70 more points than Mumford. When you say Grundy 130 and Mumford 60, that seems pretty realistic to me. He's obviously going to be really highly owned. You'd expect Grundy. If the rain comes, does that suit Mumford a bit? More stoppages that he might... Well,
maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. Might need more free kicks away. He does give a few away. So if there's more contests he's involved in, it means more potential to lose points.
Yeah, very true. He just looks like Mr. Larson. He's shocking.
You've got the comparison.
Now, you laughed at that. Have you actually seen Happy Gilmore? Like I pulled that out.
You want a movie update, do you?
I'm just wondering if you've actually seen it or you're just going along with me. But
I have seen Happy Gilmore. It's a great movie. It's a good movie. Just quickly before we move to defence, movie update. I've seen 2 movies since we talk about the movies. I've seen Major League and Rounders. I managed to finish that off today.
Oh yes, magnificent.
So I might. What was the pick? Major League was for the laughs, and then Rounders was like 101 in poker, wasn't it?
On the fence, like you typically are there, Smatho.
Yes, I am.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on. All right, let's move to the defence. Giants also they've lost Whitfield. Surely Zach Williams gets a bump now from that. Is there anyone else that you're looking at, the key position players, possibly Core and Phil Davis? Because we are trying to look at the data side where, Collingwood are giving up points. The old Phil Davis, Aiden Core, they're pretty cheap. We might be able to get some value out of them.
Yeah, you might be able to sort of pump one of those defender positions on them. If it is wet, it sort of kills the key backs in terms of scoring as well. I do agree with you, Zach Williams' call there. I don't know what happened to Heath Shaw last week. He got 30 something up at the Gabba. I was pretty keen on the 2 old boys, him and Hodgie, last week, and any good work Hodgie did was undone by Shaw. But last time they played Collingwood, he turned up in that big win GWS had. It's obviously a friendlier matchup. We know Brisbane are hard to score against sometimes for these defenders. Coming back home, Heath Shaw against the old mob, I reckon it's it's a preliminary final, so they're all going to be up, but he's just going to be bouncing off the walls. Sure, I'm happy to back the track up on him this week. Maybe if it is wet, you want to look more at the guys around the ball. Zach Williams, Jack Crisp tends to run a bit through the midfield. Even Adam Tomlinson, who's a very hard player to catch, but he tends to get a bit more of a run around on the ball. So that's sort of what I'll be looking at, the defence.
Now, I was looking at the mids earlier today, and I thought, let's just load up on the Giants mids. But then, there's only Kelly and Hopper kind of left. And then also they're a $3.30 out underdog here. So I kind of scrap that and just go back to Collingwood mids looking for the win. Is that a fair strategy? Trying to ignore GWS and just keep on the pies?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Obviously, they get the bumps with more opportunity in the middle, but there's also the chance they just get wiped off the earth in this game, GWS. Interesting, when I was going back through the old games, when they lost in the semi last year, there was only Whitfield and Cornelio who turned up for GWS. So we know that when the pies are up, they can really dominate the ball. So you talk about Kelly and Hopper, maybe they're the only ones. There might be a similar situation. We haven't talked about Matt DeBoer yet. Who do you think he's going to go to, Smatho?
Does he go halfback like a Crisp, or does he go back in the guts and look at Pendlebury or something like that?
Yeah, I'm guessing Pendlebury. Treloar and Adams is as good a players as they are, both obviously ex-GWS guys. They both can torch it a bit by foot, whereas Pendles is obviously all class. And for a guy who at the start of the year had a few guys writing him off, he's one of the few guys. He's one of the guys I didn't write off at the start of the year, and I made too many other bad calls. But he's had a really good year. He's obviously so good when he's got the ball. He uses it so well. I reckon DeBoer will go to him, so he'll be a fade for me on that basis. Pendlebury, I suppose there's some little chance maybe you go to side bottom, but I think Pendlebury's he's the heart and soul of Collingwood. I think you'd want to send him to him. I love Taylor Adams here against the old mob, especially if it rains. He'll probably get double-figure tackles. He'll be in everything, Taylor Adams. He's pretty well priced, so I really like him. If the rain stays away, I think Noble's just a massive total lock. He's been really impressive, I think, especially from a fantasy perspective. Cheap on Moneyball, still cheap enough on Draft Stars that I think you'd want to have a lot of Noble. If the rain comes, I think it possibly hurts him a little bit just with his role. He's more of an outside player, and that rain might just take things away from him a little bit, but he's still very easy to play, and he's clearly the best value on the slate if you're looking towards the cheaper guys. And then as we're talking about the rain, if it does come for this game, you want to look at the tacklers. Tim Taranto will rack them up. Hopper, Taylor Adams, Treloar, Rupert Wills had a really good game against the Cats, and he's still pretty well priced. So they're the guys I want to be zeroing in on.
Now, also, there's plenty of options in the midfields. When you get to the forwards, though, the cupboard's pretty bare down here, and I've been waiting for Jamie Elliott to have one of those off games, and it just hasn't come. So he's going to garner a lot of ownership with his upside. I might play the ownership fade, unfortunately. If you want to get ahead here, I might just have to leave him alone. But to be honest, though, I can't actually find money down here. A bit of value. Help me out.
Yeah, we sort of talked about this when they played a couple of weeks ago, that maybe Elliott was a guy we could fade. We were looking at from the perspective that there was going to be rain, and obviously there was no rain, and Elliott had another huge game. I'm sort of the same thinking again. If the rain's going to come, then maybe he's a guy that might struggle to live up to his recent form, but he's going so well in the options, to be honest, are pretty few and far between in this match. Last time they played, I think we even talked about this at the time, that Collingwood had been giving up goals to the big forwards. We saw 6 from Cameron, 4 from Himmelberg, and 3 from Finlayson. So prefer that in dry conditions, but they do have the firepower there, GWS, and those guys are capable of hitting a decent mark of their salary, but they're obviously very risky plays, especially if it's wet. it's a bit like the other game for me. I want to lock in my favourite players at other positions and then sort of tinker around with these forwards, I think.
Excellent, Heffel. Thank you for providing your thoughts there for the Giants Magpies game. Also, I've got another sneaky for this particular matchup as well. And I've gone the theory that the Giants are losing all their midfield power. The ball probably tag, as you said, Pendles or possibly someone off half-back. So I reckon I'm all over Steel side bottom to clear his over under of 99.5. So we want him to ton up here on Bet Easy at $1.88. Another over for me, Hef. You're in that same category, boat, ship, etc.
Yeah, he's probably a guy I should have mentioned in the midfield as well, side bottom. He was unbelievable against Geelong, top the 150 there. Dry conditions will obviously suit him better. And, well, there's a tiny little chance Tabarra will go to him because you know you can get side bottom. We saw Hutchings has done a couple of jobs on him, but if they do leave him alone, I think you're on a winner again there, Smatho.
Oh, very good. We were 1 for 2 last week. Ablett couldn't get the job for us last week, but Lukey Hodge, certainly he did. All right, well, that wraps up another massive show here for the DFS Down Under Show. Next week, bumper grand final preview. It's been a big season, Hef, here, and you're going to find me on location next week, Hef. So,
not again. Where are you going now?
yeah, I'm going to be across the Dutch next week. So hopefully the internet over in Auckland, in South Auckland, going to be good. So you'll catch us next week on the DFR show. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out all of our content on the DFR website. Obviously, we're going to have some new content coming up, racing, basketball, NFL. It's all going to be there for the future weeks and months into the future. So once AFL is done, we are still here kicking on. Hef, thank you for your thoughts and plays for this evening. Good luck on the leaderboards this week, and we'll catch you for the grand final edition next week. And before we cut out, a quick Brownlow tip from you as you leave.
Oh, bottom Pelly.
Bottom Pelly, I'm going to go to Dangerfield. He's going to ram it home quite late. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next Wednesday night for the next edition of the Down Under Show. Thanks, Hef.
Thanks, mate. Well done on your 12-way split too.
Thank you, mate. Love it.